everyone, welcome back to the channel. I'm Fran, I'm from Venezuela, and today we are going to be reacting to a video called The Average Cost of Groceries in Britain versus America. Which one do I think is more expensive? And I don't know, I think I'm gonna go with maybe Britain, I would think. I don't know. I know that I'm guessing it's gonna be in London. I know London is a very expensive place, but I don't know if when people talk about how expensive London is, I don't know if they talk about how expensive it is for like a tourist to do like touristy things. Like go out to restaurants or museums and stuff like that. Or if it's expensive, like to live there, like the rent and, transport, groceries, stuff like that. But America, like, it's also like the rent is super high as well. So I honestly, I don't know, like, which one is more expensive. So I'm super curious to see, which is gonna be, which one's is gonna win, or I don't know if it's like a good thing to like refer yourself as like, oh, I live in like the most expensive country. But let's check it out and comment, like, subscribe, and start.
Can I say bog?
Bog standard.
So I'm currently standing here at a bog standard British supermarket. That is a Sainsbury's, the local edition. Because this is a place where a large percentage of the British people are currently going to buy their groceries.
Yeah.
And with the cost of inflation
like
on the rise, with the cost of literally all goods going up more and more and more, I wanted to see what is the cost of an average shop at your local store in the UK, and possibly compare it to how our friends across the pond in America are currently doing with their grocery shops.
Yes, I want to know which one's more expensive.
Let's get some food.
Yeah, I'm guessing it's going to get like all the basics.
Finally back from Sainsbury's with a meal deal in hand, using, of course, a reusable bag from Morrison's, because I care about the environment.
Yes.
So today, we're going to be looking at, like I said, the difference in price between the standard groceries you can get in the UK versus the US. Having grown up in the US and spending, to this point, the majority of my life there, I'm pretty well aware of what prices things normally are. And from my experience, I always felt like it was always more expensive to just buy groceries than it was to get a takeaway or a delivery.
Oh,
or something
really?
like that. But
usually it's the other way around.
And I think the data will speak for itself pretty much. And if you are new here, hi, my name is Evan Ettinger, an American-born British YouTuber who likes making videos on interesting things.
To actual
also,
prices.
He has a master's degree in actuarial science. I'm saying this because it explains my love for mathematics. Today's video is quite mathy. Let's dive on in. Also, if you like this style of content, please be sure to give that subscribe button a little toggle. Anywho,
because I don't know how to do
groceries.
math.
In order to make this as fair as possible, I looked at 2 different stores in the US and 2 different shops in the UK.
So to get
trying to make it as uniform as possible. I also made sure that certain items were judged by the price per kilogram as opposed to just the price. So that way, of course, if something was 550 grams and something was 300 grams, we can actually see the overall cost per kilogram and see which one was more expensive. Also, using Google Spreadsheets' automatic conversion algorithms, I was able to make an entire column just for Americans to understand everything in the dollar value, and also everything in pounds for Brits. Now in the UK corner, we're looking at a Sainsbury's / Tesco, because I believe these are pretty middle of the line shops. And also they're all over the entirety of the UK. In the US, we're looking at an Acme / ShopRite. And if you're American going, I've never heard of those, I'm fairly certain there aren't any fully national grocery food chains.
Yeah, I was gonna say I've never heard of them. I was expecting him to go with like I know, like a Walmart or Costco or Kirkland's. But I think probably like Walmart is probably more generic American. And I think they have those in all countries, in all states, I think, but maybe no. But it's weird. I've never heard of this stores. There must be like local chains or something.
In the States, there might have some that are like taking up a huge majority of the West Coast or East Coast, like Safeway or Trader Joe's and whatnot. But I'm using my Jersey heritage. So we're going with ShopRite and
never heard of those in my life.
I split this up into a couple different sections with the standard groceries. We got fruit and veg, and then we got some meats and other things like that. In the UK, you can expect to spend about £1.20 for your standard loaf, no fancy, no seeds of bread. In the US, the equivalent cost in dollars,
I have to say, bread, to me, like bread can be different things, because you can have like bread that comes like in a bag that you get at a grocery store, at a supermarket, but it's more like to make sandwiches, I guess, because it comes like pre-cut, or like hot dog buns or burger buns or something like that. But also bread can be like fresh bread. I think a lot of countries have that costume where when you're like getting bread, you mean like not this kind of bread, not the one that comes in like a plastic bag, but like fresh bread that you go to a bakery, and you ask for bread and they have bread, So it's like two different things. He's going with it's like white medium bread, yeah, like just pre-cut slices. But I have to say, when you say bread, like it can mean two different things depending on where you are.
Is $3.84, or in pounds, that's £3.32, a 2.7 times increase of the cost of a single loaf of bread.
Very expensive
for the same equivalent grammage in the UK.
Yeah,
grammage. My grandma bought this loaf of bread and it was 2.7 times more expensive back in her day. Porridge oats, or oatmeal, standard kilogram box of porridge oats is going to cost you about £1.95 in the UK. Get you a nice amount of porridge. In the US, that's £4.71, the equivalent of $5.45.
Oh my god, that's so expensive.
Yet again, we're over 2 times more expensive for
my god,
this
why is
standard
it so
grocery.
expensive?
Next up, we've got
It's
cornflakes. These exist in both countries. No crazy cereals. No, we're not talking about any like Jolly Rancher or Sour Patch Kids cereal in the US. Standard cornflakes.
Jolly Rancher
in the
cereal.
UK, of course, if
Oh my
you want a big box of this terrible anti-masturbatory cereal, it's going to cost you £2. It's pretty standard. It's cornflakes. You're not paying much for cornflakes. In the US, it is £5.59. $6.46
Why is it
for
so
a box
expensive?
of cornflakes. Cornflakes. This is one of those that I was like, is it really that expensive? And then I remembered, yes, I loved cereal growing up in the States, and I always expected to pay about $4.50 for a small box, or for the cornflakes, something like that size, about $6.
I was about to say, like, well, but he grew up there. I'm guessing he was a child. He wasn't doing the shopping. Like, he just told his parents, like, I want to get some cereal. But I never knew, like, I know cereal can be expensive, but like, well, depending on the kind of cereal, but I would guess something basic like that and so generic, how it's so expensive.
So, whew, I just didn't realize how much I was really saving.
It's not like Apple
on
Jacks or
groceries
something.
living in the UK. On basic things. Moving on, we got 500 grams of rice. This one was actually quite close. Only 10% more expensive in the US. Still more expensive, but
I'm surprised. It's
not
expensive.
as bad.
Both are expensive.
1.26 times more expensive in the States for the equivalent amount of butter. Moving on to 4 pints of whole milk. And if you're wondering why I'm measuring 4 pints of whole milk, the UK is an absolutely batshit measuring thing in which they go somewhat metric and then they go back to imperial, but in a weird way, where instead of just saying a gallon or quarts or something like that,
I don't know what's a
they
gallon.
just go with 4 pints. Might as well just say 8 cups. I don't know.
Don't know
Half
what's a
gallon.
pint.
Ring a bell, anyone? 2 quarts? I don't know. Either way, so the equivalent amount
How much
of
is that in
milk,
liters?
a standard thing that most people pick up during their grocery
2
shop.
liters.
We're looking at £3.10 in the US. Yet again, more than double the UK amount of £1.45.
Yeah, but it's a lot of milk.
Switching over to dollars, that's
What
the
are you
equivalent
gonna do with
of
that
paying
much milk?
$1.68 for a half gallon of milk. So far, we've not really seen any big W's coming out the US, but that's about to change with cheddar cheese. 550 grams? No. Actually, very close though. Only 16% more expensive in the States. So you could write that off
the
as
cheese
a little bit of variance.
is
That's
expensive,
fine.
like,
a dozen medium eggs,
general.
£2.30 for a standard dozen versus £3.02 in the States.
That's actually
so for
quite
my standard dry good groceries, it looks like the UK is a resounding win with a significant decrease in the price of groceries. Now moving on to fresh fruit and veg. First up is an onion. Or rather, onions per kilogram. Per kilogram, you're looking at 85 pence for a kilogram of onions. Of course, they're cheap onions.
How much is
Except
like
in the
that?
States, you're looking at an equivalent of £3.79.
For
We're looking
one
at
onion?
4.46 times the price. Nearly 4.5
No,
times
it's per-
more money for a bag of onions.
Yeah,
And
it's
it
a
gets
bag of
worse
onions,
if you only
not
want
just
to
one
buy
onion.
a couple onions. I knew this because when I visited the States in February, I wanted to buy one onion for a dish and it cost $1 for one onion. In the UK, that's the equivalent of buying a whole kilogram of them.
Oh my God, that's so expensive.
And then finally, we get our first
an onion
W.
for $1? That's way too much.
USA. We win on the tomatoes, okay? We got some Vine fresh tomatoes. The US pays 17% less. Hell yes.
Finally.
Now, to be fair, this is a bit of an outlier because this is coming from a New Jersey location. And New Jersey is known for our Jersey fresh tomatoes. The best tomatoes.
Yes, I was gonna mention that. I think those, prices vary a lot, especially with fruits and vegetables. I think it varies depending on the season and where you are in the world, what season it is. Like, it's very dependent on, whether it's, it's they're in season. So I would guess, I don't know when he recorded this, and whether or not seasons for like tomatoes are different in the UK, and maybe they're different in the USA. But I think he has a point. Like, of course, if you live near an area that grows something, whether that be onions, tomatoes, lettuce, whatever, of course it's going to be cheaper, but it's very dependent upon like in the city or town that you live in. So it's tough to like do this math when it comes to like fruit and like fresh things in general, because prepackaged stuff like it's like year round, but with fruits and veg, it's different and it's harder to do this kind of thing.
Tomatoes you can get anywhere in the world. So you'd think because they're so incredibly good and delicious in the Garden State, they'd be more expensive.
Oh, that's why it's called the Garden State. It's true, Jersey.
So congrats. We got cheaper tomatoes. Next up, Pink Lady apples, the creme de la crap. Yes, another win for the US.
Red delicious are good too.
But we will take our W's. Now, bananas per kilogram are 78 pence in the UK. You can buy them for, at this point, freaking 30 pence per. But I digress. For the US, it's not that bad.
I have to say, like, I think, like, that's way too expensive for one banana. I don't know, bananas are cheaper. They tend to be cheaper, I think. So that's like quite expensive for a banana.
At £1.12 is the equivalent amount, so only 1.5 times more expensive.
I think that's expensive for bananas.
Only, but at this point, these are all starting to add up. And this one blew me away the most. A kilogram of carrots will set you back 45 pence, nearly 50
really
cents.
cheap.
However,
so
in the US,
cheap.
for that equivalent, you're paying £1.88. Yet again, over 4 times the cost for carrots. And at this point, it's starting to get really freaky because the US, especially like California, has so many farms.
Yeah.
Huge
Listen,
swathes
the
of
UK
land.
versus
So
a lot
much
of
more land.
carrots.
You could argue we have more people, and so therefore we have more demand. But for some reason, I feel like something else is afoot here as well. Like,
I don't know if that's
it just
like,
seems wild.
yeah, I don't know.
All of this is more expensive, except of course the Jersey Fresh and the apples. Next up, standard raisins. Standard bag of raisins are 2 times more expensive in the US. A cucumber, 1.5 times more expensive. Same thing for a can of chopped tomatoes, 1.5 times more expensive. A kilogram of potatoes. Potatoes.
The best vegetable,
cheap.
delicious.
A kilogram bag is 83 pence.
That's so
in the
cheap.
UK.
Love potatoes.
The US is 3.5 times more expensive. We're looking at over
It's quite
$3
expensive.
for a kilogram of potatoes. Lord have
They're
mercy.
worth it.
We did have 2 wins for this section of fresh fruit and veg, but now I think there might be a bit more perspective here on why there's so much processed foods in the US, because if you can believe it, a lot of those are a lot
it's
cheaper,
cheaper.
than buying all of these fresh
if-
vegetables.
if
Just
you
buy
buy
a
it
box,
frozen,
add
yes,
a couple
it's
things
probably
to it.
cheaper.
Bon appetit. You save a bit of money, not as good for you. And finally, our last section here is going to be the meat of the video. The meat. Going into this, I really
Literally.
expected the UK's to be more expensive for meats, because God, is it expensive to buy standard mincemeat and chicken and such at the local stores. But
I would guess that's expensive
mincemeat,
everywhere. I don't know.
Holy crap. £1.69 for the UK equivalent weight.
That's quite cheap.
£5.99. Holy 3.5 times
It's
for
very
meat.
expensive.
Wow.
But in the
I don't know
UK,
how
it's
much
quite
I'd eat
cheap.
meat if it was that expensive, to be honest with you. Chicken breast, 650 grams, 1.3 times more expensive.
For
in
just
the
one
US.
breast?
Okay, that's not so bad considering
Oh, no, it's
mincemeat was that
it's
big. Smoked bacon,
650 grams.
very close, very close. Nearly 1-to-1, 250 versus 256. That can change depending on how far the pound has been dropping recently. So if we were to add all these up, the cost of your total grocery shop in the UK would be £48.88.
Okay, he just like meats, just chicken and I think it was just like ground meat. I think there are other cuts of meat, I think. But it's funny that he was just like, I don't know what's the basic actually. I don't know. I don't know how much about meat.
Whereas the US equivalent is £88.69. Over $100 for a standard
it's-
grocery shop, which blows me away. Back when I used to shop at Lidl all the time, I would marvel at how many things I'd shove in my cart and it would still come out to just about 20 quid. And I was like, hell yes.
20
But
quid.
Jesus.
So 20
I
pounds?
just can't imagine a standard grocery shop being $100. Of course, this is just a couple samples taken. It's not like a sample across all of the US and all of the UK. And sure, if you're always used to paying 1.8 times what the UK is, you're not necessarily going to notice as big a difference.
course.
You don't have anything to compare it to necessarily
Yes.
while you've always been in the US. But sales tax is also a thing in quite a few states. 13
I forgot
states
about sales
actually
tax.
charge their citizens tax on basic groceries. Tennessee charges 4%. So that $100 shop has an extra $4 tacked on top.
Just tell me how much it costs.
Really probably budgeting for, and then that adds up every single shop.
Yes.
What the? Why have I just changed flannels? Oh, I must have changed my shirt location when I was changing my browsing location with today's video sponsor, NordVPN. Fun fact, I couldn't actually do this video if I didn't
quite
have
funny that he's
NordVPN. Why?
always dressed
well, I
in
wanted
like
to check the prices of different things in the New Jersey grocery store, and it wouldn't let me because they were like, no. Only Americans can see this data. So I went, excuse me?
Oh my God,
I used NordVPN.com/Evan. Boom. Now I'm in New Jersey and I can look and see, whoa, they charge way too much for an onion in this state. Ridiculous. But outside of incredibly niche things you want to do, like looking at the prices of things in different countries, you can also open up an incredibly large library of content via Netflix or any other online media platform. Just change your browsing location and now you can watch She's the Man. I don't know why you'd want to watch that, but you know, now you can on a different country's platform.
Why would you want to watch that?
NordVPN has your internet security absolutely covered, especially if you're going out there, traveling, going to cafes and using Wi-Fi's where it might not actually be the free Wi-Fi you think it is. It's a man-in-the-middle attack, but with NordVPN, all of your data is encrypted in a lovely tunnel. Or hey, just make sure you check any of your hyperlinks that you're sent so you don't get phished using NordVPN's threat detection software. So if you want NordVPN, please sign up at my link in the description, nordvpn.com/Evan, or use code Evan at checkout. You get a really good offer on a 2-year plan, and you get 4 months for free with me, okay? Don't tell anyone else. Just for you and me, all right? Thank you, NordVPN, for sponsoring. Without further ado, let's switch back into my other
let's get back to the video.
Either way, data is data. You can extrapolate from it what you will. So tell me below what your thoughts are on this whole type of situation. Is your country a bit worse with this? I know, for instance, Switzerland has it really bad when it comes to taxes and such. So maybe any Swiss people in the comments want to chime in about what their standard grocery shop looks like. If these prices seem outlandish, if you convert to euros, tell me below. Anyway, thank you so much for watching. I hope you've enjoyed it. You can subscribe and ring my bell to get new videos every Sunday in your feed on something interesting. I'll see you guys next Sunday. Goodbye. Here's a little videos about the US.
Oh, he has a ukulele.
If you subscribe to him, you'll see a new vid next Sunday. You're not actually talking about the US, you're talking about New Jersey.
I mean, I know that it's a joke, but it's kind of true. It's just a New Jersey thing. Because again, I don't know the data. I don't know if that's a thing in every single state. But I know obviously he went like the easy way, that it was, you know, I'm gonna go with like my hometown, because those are the shops that he used to shop at. So it's something that he's shopped there, so you know he's familiar. But I'm so curious to see if other states have those prices compared to the UK. But also I would be curious to see if that's just, again, that's Sainsbury, like he mentioned how there's just like chains that are everywhere, but I would love to see if those prices, because they're so cheap, but if they also like if they're the same in other, maybe in smaller towns across the UK. Or maybe they're cheaper, maybe they're more expensive. I would guess maybe it's even cheaper. I don't know. I would venture to say. Because usually in smaller towns, things tend to be just cheaper, especially when it comes to like fresh things. They're just cheaper. But I'm so curious to see like whether or not those prices maintain in different towns. On both sides, on both the US side and the UK one. I'd have to say, I don't know, because again, like if you look at it, it wasn't like that big of a haul. Like he had, you know, rice, some meat cuts, you know, chicken, meat, eggs, some cheese, but just like one type of cheese, and rice and some vegetables, but he didn't really have like there was like a lot of vegetables and fruits that he could have gotten, and I don't think they're enough like to actually cook. Like if you think about it, you know, the most common vegetables that you use when you're actually like cooking something, you know, in general, it's, you know, you're gonna need onions, you're gonna need tomatoes, but you're also gonna need like celery, some sort of a green type leafy vegetable, whether that's like spinach or lettuce, kale, whatever it is. You also like tend to go for those. He mentioned carrots and potatoes, obviously like a staple in every kitchen. But I think you can add you can add some things to that. Actually, like my point is, I don't think that it was enough to like be like, maybe I don't know, maybe for like one person. Also, like with like for how many people this sort of like grocery shop was for. Because if it was for one person, like how long is it gonna last you? Like, it's gonna last you 2 weeks? Is it gonna last you like the whole month? It's gonna last you 3 weeks, weekly, whatever. Because I think that also like is very important when you're like doing the math to see, okay, so because if it's like weekly, it's very incredible, like even more expensive than I thought. But maybe if it's like a 3 week haul, maybe it's not that bad. You know, if you think about it, it's like 100 and something, less than wonderful in the case of the US, like $100 for like 3 weeks to a month of groceries. Like, I don't think that's too bad. But in the UK, like it's super cheap. Like it's incredibly cheap. I don't know why people say now. I don't know why people say that London is like an expensive city. Because everything looks cheap. So why? How come London is one of the most expensive towns in the world? They must be referring to something else. Maybe they're referring to like rent. Probably rent is quite high. But like the food is actually quite cheap. I had no idea. I thought that, you know, it was, I don't know, I was expecting it to be like super expensive, but it wasn't, which surprised me. But again with the staples, like the basics, I think it was very conservative. That's, I think, my takeaway. Because I think a normal person would probably buy more stuff. Because if you're doing like you're doing your own cooking, or mostly you're cooking at home, it's not gonna be enough. Like the things that he got were definitely not enough. I think you would need more vegetables. You would need like pasta, maybe. He only had like rice. And oatmeal, but I guess like you need some other stuff. And also he didn't have like condiments and or you know what, or spices, you know, stuff that you need to to actually like flavor your food. And also he wasn't like in the hall, he didn't really had it was only like food based stuff. But if you're like actually doing a budget for like your house, you would also need to add, you know, like cleaning products, toothpaste, shampoo, soap, stuff like that. So I would also want to know whether or not those things are cheaper in the UK as well. Or maybe they're like super expensive there, and the US is like quite cheap when it comes to those things. But this was a very interesting video that left me with a lot of questions. But I loved it, and yeah, very eye-opening. Now I'm like, London is not that expensive, so very surprising in a good way. And that was it for today. I'll see you soon. Bye.